Hello everyone, welcome back. A long time no see. This video is going to be a little different from what I usually have on my channel. It's the winter. I don't really like leaving the house that much in the winter and doing winter activities, so I thought the best thing to do in order to stay motivated and post on this channel is to do a video essay style vlog. I've been watching a few in order to prepare for this. Not 100% sure. I know it's going to go okay. But you know what? It's worth it. And so I'm doing the video essay on the movie Maurice. It's based on a book by E.M. Forster. See, I would have done a video essay on the book itself because I loved the movie so much that I actually went out and bought this special edition with the actors' faces on it. But I really just could not wrap my head around the language of classic novels. So maybe that's like a task I'll do in the future. Right now I'm not. Was I also crazy enough to buy the DVD? Yes, I was. But here we are. I also tried to listen to the book on Audible. That didn't work out so well. After the week was up, I realized I could not multitask, and I do not like books being read to me. I just could not pay attention for the life of me. And then because I'm an introvert, Audible's like, oh, you gotta call us if you want to cancel your subscription. And so I'm like, oh great, so now I gotta talk to someone and tell them why I don't want my Audible subscription anymore because I can't focus. Shall we begin? Okay, yeah, so from what I've heard, this book was like a faithful adaptation. By the way, I have like 4 pages of like notes just ready to go at. But apparently this is a faithful adaptation, except for like 2 things. The book had a more happier ending than the movie did, which I kind of found the movie to have a happier ending. I'm not one to really watch romance type movies because they're either really cheesy or because gay ones usually have like a really sad ending, and I'm just not about that life. I want to be happy, but I don't want it to be cheesy at the same time. You know what I mean? Like rom-coms. But this is like the first romance movie I actually really enjoyed. And so, yeah, I found it on TikTok. I'm like, oh, I'll give it a shot because it's like a very vintage dark academia style movie, right? And it's set at like university for like a good chunk of it in the early 1910s. I think it starts at 1910 and ends in 1913. And it was really, really interesting to watch. Another thing that the book had that the movie didn't was less content about Risley, who was Clive's roommate. Yeah, his whole like, what I'll get into later, everything that happened to him apparently didn't happen in the book, and that was just like filler put into the movie. Okay, so one of the first quotes that stuck out to me in this movie was Maurice. I think he's like 12 at the time. He's at school and he doesn't have a lot of older men to like look up to in his family and like ask questions about like growing up. Just a lot of female role models. And so one of his teachers, who was also a male, was like, Maurice, has anyone talked to you about the birds and the bees essentially? And he's like, nope. And so he did get a lesson on that, but it was very like coded, as I'll get into in a sec. But one of the quotes that the professor or teacher said was, never do anything that you would be ashamed to do in front of your mother. Now, I can't tell if that was intentional or not, but I part of me feels like it might have been. I mean, as we get deeper, the teacher tells him that his body's a temple, don't pollute it. Is he insinuating that being gay is like bad early on, or that he should wait for marriage and not be like messing around with all these women? I'm not 100% sure where he was heading with that, but those are my thoughts going into it. And then we cut to Maurice in university. He's in like some kind of like Latin literature class, and I had to like repeatedly check that I was actually like listening to English, because as a psychology grad student, you'd think I'd be familiar with like big words and stuff like that, but I had no idea what was being said. I constantly had to check to make sure that I was listening to it in English and they weren't speaking like some foreign language. At least I think it was Latin. I think that a lot of what was said in those moments while he was in class reading with the other boys was important and pertinent to the story, but because I didn't understand it and I only caught like bits and pieces, that was the best I could do. Like you could hear some words and think about like, oh, is that like a quote that could mean something in the future, or like, but no. So something I thought that was really important during the seminar was when Maurice says deeds are more important than words. I didn't know it at the time, but this foreshadows quite a bit in the book when exactly that happens, when someone's actions speak a lot louder than their words. So there's another student in this class, Risley, who I talked about earlier, who was like very perplexed by Maurice and what he had just said, and invites him over to his room, you know, after hours alone without his friends. He really specified that. And so Maurice was like, okay, you know, like, what do I have to lose? I feel like at this point he's very innocent. He doesn't really understand that, you know, homosexuality is a thing, or that he could possibly be into that, or that could be part of his identity. But he ends up going, and Risley isn't there. It's just his roommate, Clive, who is another big main character in this story. So him and Clive basically just like chat and bond over music, and throughout the movie, or the beginning at least, they bond more and hang out more, starting platonic and then playful ways that start to lead into like more romantic things. I mean, there's one scene in particular where they're alone in Maurice's room and they're stripping each other's hair and start to cuddle, but not before their debate. And the debate was, if how society currently in England, because this is where it takes place in Cambridge University, is based on Christian values more so than ancient Greeks, which I can't help but wonder if that was also code for something more. Because, you know, the Greeks did dabble in like homosexuality and stuff like that, but Christians don't. So I can't help but wonder how that ties in. So after that, Clive starts to catch on that Maurice is like a bit different, based on the books he reads. They're very like, I guess, gay books back in the day, or had like gay love interests, and just the way their body language is towards each other, that he pulls him aside one day outside and he's like, oh, like, I love you. And this happens within like the first 30 minutes of the movie, that Clive is already saying he loves Maurice, and they've only known each other for like what feels like a month. I know a year has not passed by, but then Maurice is in denial. He's like, that's silly, that can't be. And then Clive just runs off, and Maurice is like, did I mess up? No, you didn't, because, you know, in the end, Clive gets what's coming to him. Oh, and then there's this dinner scene after they had just had this little like disagreement, and they're both in their cafeteria that reminds me of like Hogwarts and Harry Potter, and they're at opposite sides of the cafeteria. Someone's making announcements, and they just have like this eye contact for each other. No words are spoken, and it kind of reminds me of that Taylor Swift song, From the Story of Us. And it's like, I tell you I miss you, but I don't know how. I've never heard silence quite this loud. And that's what I felt in that moment, is that silence and that eye contact between them was just deafening in that moment. Then Clive goes back to his room and finds Maurice there, and the roles have started to reverse. Maurice is like, Clive, I think I like you too. But Clive will not hear it. He's like, you know what? I misjudged you. You know, you're just like a very friendly person to me. And I just misjudged it as like romance when it wasn't. So I'm really sorry. And Maurice is like, well, it's okay. I'm going to go to hell now for what I've done. And keep in mind, they haven't even kissed yet. Like, literally nothing sexual has happened besides like the hair touching thing. And Clive is like, no, nonsense. Like, they go and banter between each other as if they did was sinful, or how it's Clive's fault for mistaking M's kindness for romantic love. And again, keep in mind that the most they've done is just touch each other's hair and like read gay literature. Then after much debate, Maurice like leaves and then crawls back through a window into Clive's room and kisses him. Well, I guess it was a mutual kiss. It wasn't just one-sided. And I guess that's when the relationship started to like blossom into something more. They start skipping class to be with each other, like going to the woods, having like picnics and like mini dates with each other. And then Maurice missed a bit too much school and ended up getting kicked out. But before he gets kicked out, there was this one scene where they were in the woods. They weren't out of their picnic thing, they were just like fooling around in the grass. And Clive said this quote to Maurice, and it was, "I would have lived life half awake if you had the decency to leave me alone." So Maurice then ends up getting expelled from university and decides to become a stockbroker like his deceased father once was. Sometime later, Maurice visits Clive's family for a sleepover of sorts, and they have like two close calls. Well, I mean, they kind of make out at one point and the maid catches them, but they don't seem too concerned. And then they make out again outside near like a garden. And one of the servants or like butlers almost catches them, but they're more like stern when they see like another man is like about to catch them doing something daring per se. At this point in the film, 1 year has passed, and I just have to say these characters age so much. 3 years go by in its entirety, and they don't even look the same. Like, they looked so young at first, and then they've aged and got like beards and different haircuts, and it's like I don't even go through like eras that fast. Like, it's taken me like 4 or 5 years to stop wearing black skinny jeans and like move on to like a dark academia look, and these people are like 1 year they like turn into grown adults. I don't understand that, but to each his own. Clive is still studying to be a lawyer, or I think they call it like a barrister in England. Both sets of parents are naive to their son's close relationship and keep setting them up with like eligible bachelorettes. But that will change later on, at least from Maurice's mom's viewpoint. Okay, so nearly 50 minutes in, the student Risley, who was Clive's roommate, gets caught doing something with another man. I guess just making out, and then gets arrested and goes to jail. But not before they have a court date, where he's like stripped of his title, his career, his social status, and then he's like sent to jail for like half a year or so, I think like 8 months. And Clive sees this in the paper and he's like, oh no, this is cutting a little too close to home. We cannot be doing this anymore, Maurice. I guess he cares too much about his image and his law degree that he's like working so hard to get, to want to risk his love for somebody else. Not before he faints at a dinner hosted by M and his family. So this really gets to him, and he's starting to have like physical symptoms of the stress of being in this like forbidden relationship. And he passes out. Everyone in the room except for Maurice and his mom, they all like run to get towels, get the doctor, like, I don't know, do something, get a snack. And they're both like hovering over him like, oh my God, like what do we do? Eventually Clive does come back to his senses though, and Maurice gives him a kiss on the lips in front of his mother. And then later on, he has to pull his mother aside and be like, yeah, let's keep that on the down low. That never happened. And the mom has that like smirky smile, like, yeah, she knows what's going on. So like from that point on, you do not hear her pushing bachelorettes or like eligible women onto Maurice anymore. But Clive's family still does. So after that dinner, Clive, I guess like a few days later, ends up taking a trip to Greece, which in this film, it's known that if you do go to Greece, you're going there to have a good time, to sleep around with people, to live your best life. You know what I mean? As like a single bachelor. And so yeah, he ghosts Maurice, and Maurice is like writing him these letters like, please, like, tell me where you are, what's happening. It's really sad. He comes back randomly to visit Maurice, and you can tell Clive is uncomfortable by his body language. Like, Maurice is so welcoming. He's like, oh my goodness, you're back. Missed you so much. How was Greece? Like, it doesn't even address the ghosting, I don't think. And Clive is like, this is gonna have to end. And his body language is like very tense and like uncomfortable to be there. But he needed to do that in order to just like cut off Maurice. Or not so much cut off Maurice, but tell him that like, no, this isn't okay. He tells him he doesn't feel like he wants to risk his life to be with Maurice. And he's tired of having to keep his relationship a secret and wants a love that he can like display in the open and have a family and kids and like not risk his title and everything that comes with being in a homosexual relationship at the time. And Maurice is like dumbfounded. He's about to go through his like Taylor Swift Reputation era because he is so fed up at this point. He's like, what? Like, who cares about all that? We can like live in a farm like in the middle of nowhere and be self-sustaining and like live our best lives. But Clive just honestly, even if he doesn't love his wife, he just wants that image to be like that perfect goody two-shoes boy. So Maurice isn't happy about this and attempts to like kiss Clive as if that's gonna like bring him back to like reality. And they get into this like little shuffling match, and as he kisses him, he like bites Clive's lip, and you can see like blood coming out. And Maurice falls back into the chair conveniently placed behind him and is like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Did I hurt you? Like, what an ending! What an ending!" is what he like repeats to himself twice. Because I think he knows at this point that like, yeah, we're not gonna be able to salvage this. A year later, Clive gets engaged to a woman, and Maurice finds out through a telegram sent to his mother. And then one day at work, Maurice gets a phone call from Clive's fiance. She's like, "Oh my goodness, hey, like just wanting to like talk to Clive's friends and get to know them and tell them like, yeah, we're about to get married. But I don't know what to say because I've had the same phone call with 8 other people," and Maurice's face drops because he wasn't even in like the top 5 friends to call first. He was the 8th, and you can just see Clive's face in the background when the camera cuts to him and the wife on the phone. He's like, "Don't say that. She said it though. You can't take it back." And so Maurice is just shocked, and I thought that was probably like the only little funny bit to happen in this entire film. Okay, now we are on to the second half of the film. Maurice goes to his personal family doctor for the issue, strips down naked, because the doctor thinks he's in for an STD because Maurice does not want to spit out that he's like gay. The doctor's like, "Yeah, you're clean. Like, you know, live your life to the fullest." And Maurice is like, "What? But like, my penis is the reason that I'm like this, that I'm different from everyone." And the doctor's like, "No, that's in your head. That's in your head. Go find a nice girlfriend and do not taint your mind with these devilish thoughts." Next, we're at Clive's wedding, and then at the villa, or I guess it's his like normal house, and Maurice has been invited there. And so this is where we meet our second character, who we're going to see a lot more of in the film, and his name's Alex Scudder. I'm probably just going to call him Scudder for the rest of this vlog because that's what he's been called, and that's what we'll stick to. So Maurice gets a telegram to go to town, and I can't tell if this is a hypnotist or a psychologist. It might be both. I don't know if psychologists were allowed to practice that back in the day, but he's essentially there to cure Maurice of these like thoughts. Clive and his wife think that Maurice is going out for like a special lady for like a date, when that is not the case. That is just a misunderstanding on their part for like being nosy and speculating and assuming. Then we have a cutaway of Maurice in his room writing letters while Clive intrudes. They talk for a bit. Clive kisses his hand and tells him that he hasn't forgotten about the past, but how wonderful it is to have women in our lives and to never mention homosexuality again. But invites Maurice over whenever. And Maurice is like, "I am very confused right now. Why did you kiss my hand like that? I thought we weren't doing that." Clive leaves, Maurice opens his window, and I'm guessing a pathetic fallacy is going on because it is pouring rain outside, and you just see Maurice like sticking his head out, like getting all wet and having like this little like moment to himself. I'm guessing to like get him clean and wash him of this filth and like these dirty thoughts that are like come into his head again. And that's when we see like Scudder behind a tree, like spying on him, like giggling and laughing. And this is probably like the first time in the film When I saw Scudder, I'm like, okay, maybe something else is gonna go on here, because you know, just smile and laugh at like a grown man who's like at his window, like shaking him. I don't know, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I just don't think you would, if there wasn't anything romantic involved. Then we see Maurice leaving again, I believe, to go to another hypnotist appointment. And Scudder takes everyone's tips but Maurice's, and Maurice is deeply offended because I'm guessing Scudder doesn't want to take the tip because he really likes him and is trying to like show him like, yeah, like I don't need your money because you're more than enough for me. But yeah, Maurice is just like really offended and can't understand why, because he doesn't see yet that Scudder is also like him. So Maurice is in the hypnotist's office and it doesn't work out. So the hypnotist suggests doing manly things like getting fresh air, playing sports and stuff. And Maurice decides to go back to Clive's house because, you know, it's a great idea, going back to your ex's house, and being reminded of all those romantic memories you had in the past. That's really going to get your mind out of the gutter and help you. He should have just like booked it back to his own place, or like, I don't know, went to a retreat in the woods, but this just was not a good idea. But it ended up working for him in the end, so I can't blame him. Then we see Scudder again. he meets Maurice outside again, I'm guessing on purpose, and he's like, I'm so glad to see you, sir, like happy you're back. And they just chat about like life for a few minutes, nothing serious. It's interesting to see the parallel between this, because Scudder then goes to the servants' quarters after they're done their little conversation, and the servants are like speaking crap about Maurice, right? And he defends Maurice openly and is like, don't talk to him that way, you don't know him, like mind your own business. And everyone stops talking crap about Maurice. Then later that night, we have Scudder breaking into Maurice's room, and they lock eyes. They immediately know, and they do the dirty. That's what goes on. Yeah. Anyways, later there's a cricket match, and then again we've got the higher class society people talking bad about Scudder, who's playing in the game. And Maurice it's his turn to defend Scudder now, right? And it's funny, they don't know they've done this for each other, but they have. And so he defends him and is like, yeah, that's also not cool. You can see that Maurice throughout this film though shows physical signs of stress, like headaches and like sleeplessness, restlessness. But they do start to go away once this new relationship has started to form with Scudder. Maurice goes back to the hypnotist for like the last time and is like, nothing is working. I'm not making any progress. And so Maurice blames on sleeping with Scudder, and then receiving a romantic letter from him asking him to meet him in the boathouse on the property later that night. And the hypnotist is like, yeah, no, you're not going to do that. Rips the letter in half, burns it, and is like, you need to find a woman. Please stop this. But clearly he's not very good at his job. And that's like a very negative and wrong way to think about it, but this is like 1912, so. Scudder ends up visiting Maurice at work. And so he shows up and it's like, well, why did you miss our appointment? That's not very cool. And is like very pissed off. But I must say, Scudder knows his worth. He knows his worth because he can see that Maurice is not amused that he made the trip and demands to be treated with respect and not like a dog. I noticed a lot of trauma dumping in this movie too. But it's okay, I still love it. It's still my favorite. I will still watch it year after year. And so Scudder says he's never acted out like that with another man before. Usually, I think he might be bisexual. Everyone's sexuality in this is a little fuzzy except Maurice's. I don't know why. But he's like, I've never acted like that towards another man, and feels as though that should mean something. And then that quote I had selected earlier, where it was like, where he says deeds are important, more important than words. That's where that comes in, because now I guess it was foreshadowing that, hey, what I did physically with you, like that deed, that's really important. You should appreciate that, because I've never done that with anyone else, so, or with another man at least, because I know there's like a priest later on who's like a very, very minor character, and he's trying to get Scudder confirmed because he's not and believes Christianity's the way to go. And he was talking about how Scudder also is like sinful in that he plays around a lot with women. So Maurice takes him to a museum date where S finds out that he's buttering it up, and so he'd rather blackmail Maurice. And Maurice is like, good luck, because I've got money, I've got higher class and social status, so who are they going to believe? You, the peasant servant, or me, the stockbroker? And then Scudder's like, yeah, I'm not getting my way. So they leave the museum, let it all out, confess their love for each other. Maurice says why he never showed up and ends up hooking up in a hotel room with Scudder. After that hookup, Maurice tries to convince Scudder not to leave England because he likes him, and to find a love like this back in the day was like so rare that like you really want to hold on to it for like however long you could. Scudder's like, no. And Maurice is like, fine, I'll go with you. I'll give up my class, social status, job, career, family, my house, everything, and I will leave to go with you. And Scudder's like, that is a very dumb idea. You will not be doing that because you essentially need those things to survive, right? You need a job and all these things, and you worked hard, and you can just ditch people like your family last minute. So the next day, Maurice goes to the ship, because this was before planes, I'm guessing. No, was it? Yeah. I don't think they had planes for like public use in 1910. Anyways, I'm trying to gauge from like World War I, because I feel like they had fighter jets in World War I, no? And that was like 1914 to 18. Anyways, so he goes to the boat. Scudder isn't there, but his whole family is, and everyone's like, where did this boy go? And Maurice wanted to, I guess, give him a gift and some parting words. And after a while, it clicks in. He's like, oh, I know where this man is now. He's at the boathouse at Clive's residence. And so he bolts his way in a taxi to get there. Before he gets there, he passes by Clive's house, and Clive sees him and thinks that Maurice is there to see one of the ladies, one of the bachelorettes. But he confesses his love for Scudder, and Clive finds it grotesque and is sorry for M's obsession, which is the stab in the heart. Scudder ended up sacrificing his career for Maurice, and Maurice has nothing left to say to Clive, so he runs off to find Scudder in the boathouse. Scudder during this time was afraid that Maurice wouldn't come, and he was like, damn, I might have sacrificed everything for nothing. But they end up like meeting up, so it's okay. He finds Scudder there by the fire. They kiss and hold each other, and I'm guessing they're in love. Their stories, like, I'm not sure what happens after that, because like World War I would have happened. But it's still a happy ending in my book, but we're not quite done yet. So then the camera pans to Clive back in his house, looking at the window in his room, and he sees a younger version of Maurice there in university, like waving him to come down, calling him by name. But that memory slowly fades away as his wife wraps her arms around her husband, Clive. And in that moment, I think that Clive really knows that he messed up, and now he's got to live this life forever, essentially, because Maurice isn't there for him any longer. And a quote that was in the book and not in the movie was, I was once yours till death if you'd cared to keep me, but I'm someone else's now. And Maurice said that to Clive. And so that's really touching. And it also reminded me of another quote by Taylor Swift about unconditional love. And while I don't think Maurice has that for Clive anymore, Clive definitely has it for Maurice. And it goes like this. To love someone unconditionally is to still love them even after they don't love you anymore. And so I think that also like cuts really deep and relates to what's going on here at the end of this film. I do recommend giving it a watch if you haven't already. I'll link down below where you can watch it. It's like the 3-hour-long version that's like not cut at all, so there's like deleted scenes. I didn't talk about the deleted scenes though, because not everyone has access to that. But at least here in Canada, I know for sure that link is going to work. Hopefully you enjoyed this style of vlog. I can see myself definitely coming out with more of these in the future for like topics that I like and things I want to get into detailed into. I know I'm gonna have to edit this a lot. I have mad respect for the people making video essays because the amount of times I stumbled on my words or like messed up was insane, and I can only imagine how long this is gonna take to edit. So have yourself a wonderful night, and I'll see you later. Bye.